You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
Imagine a place where the most vulnerable in our society or elders are supposed to be cared for, yet over 0 premature deaths occur every year, all in the name of profit. Sounds shocking, right? Now, you might assume I'm describing for-profit prisons, but the real story is even closer to home. It's America's nursing homes. Let me paint you a picture. These institutions are often run by the same folks who profit from incarceration. They cut corners, skirt regulations, and rake in hundreds of millions, all while residents suffer from neglect, malnutrition, and worse. You may be asking, how could this happen in a country as wealthy as the U.S.? Well, it all comes down to an irresistible business model, steady demand, guaranteed government payments, and a population that, thanks to demographic trends, will only keep growing. But when profit is prioritized over care, the result is a catastrophic system where those who need help most are often left to languish. The real tragedy? Most families only discover these grim realities when it's already too late. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the business of aging, how it's built, why it's broken, and who's really cashing in on America's elderly. Let's talk business. If you're an investor with deep pockets and a nose for opportunity, senior living is like hitting the jackpot. Picture this: an ever-growing customer base, consistent cash flow from government programs like Medicare, and customers who, by the nature of aging, rarely check out until their very last day. Now, here's a technical term: alternative asset class. That's how Wall Street labels senior housing, putting it in the same league as commercial real estate or private prisons. And with economies of scale, the ability to spread costs over multiple properties' profits only multiply. You might be thinking, that doesn't sound so bad. Isn't investment good for care? But the reality is more sinister. With cash flooding in and little oversight, the incentive is to cut costs at every turn, even if it means breaking the law. In fact, anyone with a brokerage app and 90 can now invest in the aged care market through real estate investment trust REITs, turning elder care into just another line on a balance sheet. It's a gold rush, but the only ones striking gold are the investors. The residents, they're paying the real price. Senior living isn't one size fits all. There are 3 main types: independent living, assisted living, and skilled nursing facilities. Each comes with its own promises and pitfalls. Independent living sounds idyllic: active seniors in luxury settings, paying handsomely for meals, activities, and peace of mind. It's like a gated community with a hefty price tag. Did you know homes at places like the Villages can run over $2 million? But here's the catch: most retirees fund their stay by selling their homes. So as real estate prices climb, so do the costs to enter these communities. It's a cycle where the dream of inheritance gets gobbled up by corporate landlords. Assisted living ramps up the care, supporting residents with daily needs. Still, most costs are out of pocket, unless you're lucky enough to have insurance. But more on the risks there in a moment. Finally, skilled nursing facilities, think hospitals that people call home. Funded mainly by Medicaid, these homes face the tightest budgets but deal with the sickest, most vulnerable residents. The higher the need, the tighter the squeeze. Let's zoom in on independent living. On the surface, it's a world of pool parties, golf carts, and art classes. Residents choose to be here, often enjoying resort-style amenities that rival 5-star hotels. Business-wise, these facilities rely on direct sales or leases, what's called fee-for-service. The more amenities, the bigger the profit margin. And here's your first technical term: price elasticity. Operators charge whatever the market can bear, knowing that retirees are cashing out homes to buy in. But as home prices soar, so do buy-in costs and monthly fees. And remember, all this comes out of residents' pockets. There's no government safety net here. So you might be wondering, who's losing out? Well, every dollar spent on luxury living is a dollar that won't get passed down. If you're waiting for that inheritance to buy your first home, sorry, the nursing home is first in line. It's a gilded cage for the affluent, but the cracks start to show as you move down the ladder of care. Now, assisted living, the halfway point between independence and medical care. Here, seniors get help with daily activities: bathing, medication, meals. Sounds comforting, right? But let me tell you a story that'll chill you. A recent Associated Press report documented dozens of cases where residents starved because there simply weren't enough staff. Here's where staffing ratios come in a technical term for the number of caregivers per resident. Unlike hospitals, there's often no mandated minimum. Insurance companies, wielding negotiating leverage, push down reimbursement rates so operators can't raise prices. Their solution? Slash staff. The result: basic needs go unmet and tragedies unfold in silence. You're probably thinking, why don't families just move their loved ones? The truth is, most residents can't leave physically, financially, or even legally. What we see is a business model that rewards cost-cutting, not care, and the consequences are deadly. What happens when a senior loses their freedom entirely? Let me introduce you to Max Kaplan. He went in for a minor hospital procedure at age 80 and never saw his home again. Instead, a social worker declared his home unfit, and Max was placed under guardianship. Now, guardianship sounds protective, but in practice, it can be a legal snare. Max's guardian sold his house, liquidated his assets, and now controls all his finances. Max gets $50 a month, barely enough for incidentals. As of last year, he isn't even allowed off the premises. This isn't Hollywood fiction real life I care a lot. Guardianship abuse is rampant, especially for elders with assets. Once trapped, residents can't leave, and their money is siphoned away by both the facility and the legal system. You might be asking, where's the oversight? The answer: there's little to none, and those profiting have every incentive to keep it that way. When care becomes a commodity, the line between protection and exploitation blurs sometimes fatally. Let's talk about the people on the front lines, caregivers. In 2021, 87% of nursing home providers reported critical staffing shortages. But why? It's all about margin compression, a technical way of saying there's just not enough money to go around. Wages for caregivers are shockingly low, between $12 and $27 an hour in California. Imagine doing physically and emotionally draining work for less than a barista's wage. During COVID-19, staffing agencies hiked their rates, pushing facilities even deeper into the red. Insurance payments and Medicaid rates are fixed, barely rising with inflation. Operators can't raise prices on government or insurance-funded residents, so the only place left to cut is care. And here's the kicker: over half of assisted living homes are now operating at a loss. Yet investors still expect returns, so the pressure to cut corners only intensifies. This is a classic lose-lose scenario: stressed staff, suffering residents, and a business model that's running on fumes. Skilled nursing facilities, or SNFs, are where the sickest seniors go round-the-clock care, medical oversight, and, unfortunately, the worst financial pressures. These are hybrid hospital homes, and the technical term here is acuity, the complexity of care needed. Most SNF residents have exhausted all savings, relying solely on Medicaid, which pays far less than the real cost of care. Operators face regulatory compliance's strict rules about staffing and safety, but the funds simply don't cover the basics. So how do operators survive? Some resort to creative financing, selling facilities to investors and leasing them back, piling on debt, and cutting spending on staff and supplies. The result? Facilities with crumbling walls, residents left unattended, and most damning, thousands of preventable deaths. It's a system designed to fail the very people it's supposed to serve. If you think this sounds like disaster capitalism, you're not wrong. It's the intersection of healthcare and high finance, and the casualties are counted in human lives. Private equity, two words that should send a chill down your spine if you have a loved one in care. These firms swoop in, buy struggling facilities, and extract value using tactics like leverage buyouts, taking on debt to buy assets, then selling them off and leasing them back. Here's how it works. PE firms raid the company's assets, saddle it with rent and loan payments, and squeeze every dollar out, even as the quality of care nosedives. The technical term? Asset stripping. It's like gutting a car for parts and selling the shell. A damning National Bureau of Economic Research report found these financial maneuvers are directly linked to 20 zero premature deaths residents pay with their lives, while investors walk away richer. Now, you might think, aren't these tactics illegal? Often they're not just unethical, and with little transparency, families and regulators are left in the dark until it's far too late. It's capitalism at its most ruthless, and it's playing out in nursing homes across America every single day. Some investors have found an even more lucrative angle: buy up the companies that supply services to nursing home staffing, rehab, catering. This is known as vertical integration, controlling both the facility and its essential vendors. Take H Capital's acquisition of Reliant Rehabilitation, one of America's biggest contract staffing providers. By owning the supplier, they can set prices, cut costs, and boost profits across their portfolio, whether it's elder care or private prisons. This is where the technical term synergistic cost reduction comes into play, sharing administration, sales, and contracting across companies to maximize returns. You might ask, doesn't this consolidation improve efficiency? Sometimes, yes, but it also concentrates power, erodes accountability, and creates new conflicts of interest. Vulnerable residents become pawns in a corporate chess game. I've spent years in investment banking, witnessing these deals firsthand. They don't have to end badly, but when people are the product, the temptation to compromise care is always there. So, what's being done? In 2023, the White House announced new nursing home staffing regulations. On paper, this promises safer care, but operators quickly warned of systemic shortages they claim they can't find or pay enough staff. Media coverage is all over the map, depending on your news source. If you haven't checked out apps like Ground News, I highly recommend it. They let you compare reporting from left, right, and center, so you can see the real story behind the spin. At its core, the challenge is structural. Regulations aimed at protecting residents are only as effective as the funding behind them. Without higher Medicaid payments, more oversight, and real accountability, reforms will be paper tigers. You might be thinking, is there any hope? Absolutely. Transparency, stronger whistleblower protections, and true public investment could turn the tide. But it will take sustained attention and outrage from all of us. Our elders built this country. They deserve dignity, not exploitation. The fight for better care starts with knowledge, and that's where real change begins.